Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our webinar tonight. We'll allow everybody to log on here and get situated. I hope everyone is staying warm and safe throughout our first snowfall of 2024. And it looks like we have another one coming our way here in a couple days too. So Iowa finally looks like winter. Okay, glad we have attendees coming on here tonight. All right, well, thank you very much for logging on to our webinar this evening. My name is Jessica Schultz, and I'm with Iowa College Access Network, or ICANN. And tonight what we're going to do is we are going to talk about the financial aid application. And no, we're not going to talk about that financial aid application, not the FAFSA. Okay, so for once, we're not going to do FAFSA tonight. We're not going to talk about any more delays or planned maintenance or soft launches. We're going to talk about another application, and this is going to be the Iowa financial aid application. So we got two applications. We have the FAFSA and we have the Iowa financial aid application, and that's what we're going to cover this evening. And here tonight to help us with that are our good partners from the Bureau of Iowa College Aid. I have Liz Yadoff here and Julie Voss. Hello, ladies.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for coming on tonight and sharing some great information, not only about the Iowa financial aid application, but also the different grants and scholarships that students may qualify for here in the state of Iowa. So, Julie, you are in control, right? You're going to run the show here?
I'm going to do my best. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Liz will man the chat questions. So if you do have any questions that pop up, please go ahead and put them in the chat box. Okay, because we'll be watching that chat box and then we'll go ahead and tackle those questions as they come up throughout the webinar this evening. Okay. All right.
Perfect.
So we'll go ahead and get started.
All right. Appreciate it, Jessica. Thank you for the invitation to be here. And thank you to ICANN for inviting us to be a part of this event. My name is Julie Voss. I'm with the Iowa Department of Education, and I'm in a bureau there called the Bureau of Iowa College Aid, where we focus on all things higher education access and funding. And as Jessica mentioned, my colleague Liz and Jessica will be monitoring the chat. So again, I want to repeat the invitation to at any time put questions in the chat, and we will pause every so often to see if any of the questions need discussion. Tonight, I want to spend a few minutes talking about applications. I want to give you a quick high-level overview of the 10 scholarships and grants that are offered by the state of Iowa. We'll do a really quick live demo of the Iowa financial aid application, including pointing out a couple places where students sometimes get hung up. So we'll give you a couple of hacks for getting through our application. And then we will leave you with our contact information in the event that questions arise after the presentation tonight so that you'll know how to get a hold of us. Okay. There are two primary applications for the state of Iowa. And yes, the first one is kind of that dreaded FAFSA. Although, given all of the effort that the Federal Department of Education has put into the FAFSA, I understand that it has now become a pretty streamlined and pretty slick application. It is a federal form created by the Federal Department of Education. And one of the primary purposes of the FAFSA is to compute a student's financial need. And the FAFSA does this by taking all of the income and asset and family information, and it calculates a student aid index, which is a number that represents that student's financial need. And you'll see in the following slides how that student aid index is used by the state of Iowa to calculate aid for our grants and scholarships as well. Every single one of the 10 scholarships and grants that we offer at the state of Iowa does require the FAFSA to be completed. And it does require the FAFSA to be completed by a particular deadline. So I want to pause for a second and talk about deadlines. And I'm going to start my conversation with a very sad story that unfortunately happens at least a couple times a year for us. And that is, we will inevitably have a student contact us and say, hey, I know the deadline for this scholarship was, let's say, April 15th. And so I pulled up the FAFSA site on April 15th and it was 11:45 at night. And when I started my FAFSA, it was April 15th. But it took me a few minutes to finish it. And so by the time I submitted it, it was actually April 16th. But that's okay, right? Because I started it on the 15th. And sadly, the answer is no. That FAFSA needs to be fully completed and fully submitted by those deadline dates. They really aren't negotiable. And so I'm going to emphasize, you'll see in the upcoming slides, each of our programs, or a lot of our programs, let me phrase this in a better way. The deadlines vary for all of our scholarships and grants. So I will definitely be pointing out the different deadlines that apply to each of our programs. And then you will want to couple that information with whatever the financial aid office at your student's preferred college or university is telling you for their FAFSA filing deadline, and make sure to meet the earliest of all of the deadlines. Okay, enough about the FAFSA and deadlines. Let's talk about the Iowa financial aid application for a second. This is a state-specific form created by the state of Iowa as a way to help administer the scholarships and grants that we have. Not every student will need to submit the IFA. It's for very specific populations. And how I like to explain this is, out of the 10 scholarships and grants that we offer, about half of our offerings only require the FAFSA. When you have submitted the FAFSA, you have automatically applied for about half of what we offer. The other half of our scholarships and grants are for pretty specific populations. And it's those populations that need to come to our website to submit the Iowa financial aid application. And we'll talk about that in more detail in the following slides. Our application does have some skip logic and smart logic, so ideally students are only asked for the information necessary to determine their eligibility. And one key thing to note that will be demonstrated once we bounce over to the IFA website is that a student could be presented with multiple forms to fill out, multiple applications. So it's important that they submit and go on to the next one, and submit and go on to the next one. And we'll demonstrate that here in a minute. Okay, before I dive into kind of my high-level overview, I want to do a quick orientation on what you're going to see in the following slides. Because of the time of year, we do not yet know what the value of our scholarships and grants is going to be in the upcoming year. We are a state agency and we're dependent on the legislature to set the state's budget. And until we know how much money we have to spend, we can't really put firm dollar amounts in place to tell you how much a scholarship is going to be valued at. So what you'll see on the following slides is some context. You will see context for what the current award amount is, since we don't yet know what it will be for the 24-25 school year. And in terms of that student aid index, many of you have probably heard that we are in this big transition year. Last year, there was a different metric used called the EFC. Next year, it's going to be the student aid index. So again, we don't know what this student aid index range is going to be for our programs until later this spring, but I can at least give you the context of what it is currently. If you have questions about that, or if I didn't explain that very clearly, please throw a question in the chat and we can revisit that concept. So starting out with the first scholarship, this is the All Iowa Opportunity Scholarship. This is for recent high school graduates who will be starting college for the first time in the fall 2024 or spring 2025 semesters. This particular scholarship does have a continuous enrollment requirement, and it's important to point that out because students who do not continuously enroll in every fall and every spring semester, if there's a break in enrollment, they will forfeit all future scholarship payments from the All Iowa Opportunity Scholarship. So continuous enrollment is a thing for this one. This scholarship gives preference to students in certain populations, which are on the screen here. Primarily, those are students involved in the Iowa foster care system, students whose parent was killed in the line of duty while the parent was serving as a public safety officer, like a sheriff, police, or firefighter. Students who have participated in TRIO programs while in high school. So those are going to be my students who are in Upward Bound, Talent Search, and Educational Opportunity Centers. Students who have graduated from an alternative high school, and students who have participated in a Gear Up cohort. And those students will be asked to self-identify on the application for the All Iowa Opportunity Scholarship. The eligible student aid index for next year, again, not yet known, but the context here for the current year, that range was 0 to 10,396. And this award for the current year was valued at $5,198. This award does adjust every year, so there will be a new dollar amount for next year. For this scholarship, you must attend a college in the state of Iowa, and that can be a community college, private university, or a state university. And this particular scholarship requires both the FAFSA and the Iowa financial aid application to be fully submitted by March 1, 2024. So that's just here in a month and a half. So if students that are on the webinar or parents of students that are on, if you think the All Iowa Opportunity Scholarship is a possibility for your student, please note the deadline for this one. This is our earliest deadline, March 1. The next scholarship that I'd like to highlight is the Education and Training Voucher Grant. This one is exclusively for students involved in the Iowa foster care system. So if you are a student who has aged out of foster care, or if you were adopted from foster care after turning 16, this grant is an option for you. We do require both the FAFSA and the IFA to be filed by December 1, 2024. So this is actually one of our later deadlines. You can apply for it during the academic year. And even though we do require the FAFSA, there is no need requirement for this one. So SAI is not something we look at to administer this grant. It does have a value of $5,000. That is a static amount, so we're not waiting for an update for next year. The value of that for next year will be $5,000. The next scholarship is the Future Ready Iowa Grant. This one is for a little bit more of a non-traditional population, as the student does have to be age 25 or older, and they need to be pursuing a 4-year degree in a high-demand program of study. Those programs of study can adjust from year to year as to what the state deems to be in high demand. Right now, those programs center around social work, teaching, and healthcare. Students do have to be enrolled in at least a half-time status. That's usually 2 classes or 6 credits. And this one, it's important to note, date of application becomes really, really critical. This one is awarded on a first come, first served basis. We do not have the funding to award every eligible student. So date of application becomes one of the factors in awarding this. The maximum amount for the current year is $3,000. And this one requires both the FAFSA and the Iowa financial aid application by July 1. If you are a student or a parent who thinks that this grant might be a possibility for you, even though the deadline is July 1, again, the FAFSA is open and available right now. The IFA is open and available right now. Please don't wait till July 1. Give yourself the best possible chance and apply now. At this point, before I continue with the last dollar scholarship, I'm going to pause and ask Liz or Jessica if there are any questions that need discussing or any clarifications that I should give.
Nope, there's no questions that need to be addressed at the time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Continuing on with one of our more popular scholarships. This one got a lot of press when Governor Reynolds announced her Future Ready Iowa initiative, and this was part of that initiative. This is a scholarship for students who are pursuing high demand associate degrees, diplomas, and certificates. So this is a scholarship focused on shorter term programs of study that put people in a high demand occupation quickly. Student must be enrolled at least half time. Again, that's usually 2 classes or 6 credits. They must enroll at an eligible community college, and there are 4 private colleges that offer associate, diploma, or certificate programs. And I believe they are St. Luke's, Allen, Dordt, and Mercy College of Health Sciences here in Des Moines. Those are the only 4 private schools that are eligible. This one does have a cap on the SAI, or what will be the SAI. This year, that cap was 20,000. So the eligible SAI range for this year was 0 to 20,000. This scholarship pays a student's tuition and fees once other federal and state scholarships have been subtracted. So I find it useful to give a quick example just to clarify. If I'm attending a school where the tuition and fees for the semester is $4,500 and I'm receiving a $1,000 Pell Grant, then the last dollar scholarship would pay the remaining $3,500 of tuition and fees for that semester. A question that we often get asked is, in that scenario that I just gave, can the student instead direct the Pell Grant to go towards tuition and fees such that this scholarship pays the tuition and fee, the entire tuition and fees? And the answer is no. The calculation for this scholarship explicitly states that the student's other federal and state scholarship aid has to be included. This particular scholarship has a deadline that has fluctuated over time. And the deadline for the current academic year was July 15. Again, if this is a scholarship that you want to attempt to receive, please don't wait until July 15. We will know later on this spring what that deadline will be. And so it's best to fill out the FAFSA sooner rather than later to get the best shot at the last dollar scholarship. All right, the Iowa Tuition Grant. We actually have 2 versions of the Iowa Tuition Grant. The first one is for students attending an eligible private college in Iowa. And these are going to be St. Ambrose, William Penn, Loras, Luther, Morningside, Grandview, Co, Mount Mercy. So if the student's attending an eligible private college, and I should say that was not an exclusive list. That was just me trying to give some examples of who the eligible private colleges are. This one, the SAI range for the current year was 0 to 16,000. And this scholarship was valued at $7,500 this year. This one also has a July 1 deadline, and only the FAFSA is required. The other version of the Iowa Tuition Grant is for students seeking a cosmetology degree at LaJames International. And LaJames does have several campuses around the state, and they are the only college currently participating in this version of the Iowa Tuition Grant. So if your student is interested in cosmetology at LaJames specifically, please file the FAFSA before July 1. The value of the award for this current school year was $1,600, and that eligible SAI range, again for this current school year, was 0 to 13,000. And we will know more about both of those figures later this spring for next year. The next one I want to highlight is the Iowa Vocational Technical Tuition Grant. This one is exclusively for students at a community college who are pursuing a CTE program, a career or technical education program. The FAFSA is required by July 1st. This year, the award was valued at $1,200, and the eligible SAI range this year was $201 to $6,000. And I'll take another quick pause and ask Liz or Jessica if there's any questions or clarifications needed.
We had one clarifying question, if the FAFSA was the only application needed for last dollar scholarship.
Yes, the FAFSA application is the only application needed for last dollar scholarship.
And that is it. Thanks.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, the Iowa National Guard Service Scholarship. This is one of those specific populations that I was trying to illustrate at the beginning, where the FAFSA covers about half of our programs and the other half of our programs are for specific populations. Soldiers in the National Guard are one of those populations. So if you are a soldier or know a soldier in the Army or Air National Guard, there is tuition assistance for soldiers. We require both the FAFSA and the IFA to be filed by July 1st. The current value of that award is around $8,800, and the student needs to be attending a college in Iowa. Okay, this is our brand new program that just was born last summer and made its first disbursements to students this fall of 2023. This is the Iowa Workforce Grant and Incentive Payment Program. This program is exclusively for students at the 3 state universities who are pursuing a high demand program. Again, these programs can change from year to year, but the thing to note is when a student receives a workforce grant, actually receives a grant payment, should their program be removed from the high demand list, they can continue to receive workforce grants until they graduate. This program is not only targeted to students at the state universities, but it is specifically for juniors and seniors in those high demand programs. So the student must have completed at least 60 hours of their bachelor's degree before they can qualify for this. The current year SAI range was 0 to 7,000. It has a value of $2,400 per year. Again, we'll know later this spring what the value is for the upcoming year. Just the FAFSA is required, but this one has a unique, neat twist, and that is this incentive payment. So once a student receives a workforce grant in their junior and senior year, if the student remains in Iowa, secures full-time employment in a high need field, and if they do those 3 things within 6 months of graduating, the student can then apply for this incentive payment of $2,000. There are no restrictions to what that payment can be used on, and we will never ask the student, what did you spend that $2,000 on? It is taxable income because it is issued to the student almost like a bonus paycheck. So the idea is if you're pursuing one of these high demand programs of study and you graduate, stay in Iowa, secure full-time employment in a high demand field, then there is an extra bonus payment for you. You do have to apply for it, and we will send reminders to students to apply for it. Okay, the last program that I want to highlight is the Kibbie Grant. This one is also exclusive to students at community colleges who are pursuing a CTE program, a career and tech ed program. It has a value of $3,000 currently, and the eligible SAI range was 0 to 6,000 for the current school year. And this one only requires the FAFSA as well, with a FAFSA due date of July 1. That concludes my overview of the programs. What I'd like to do is I'll bring up our contact information. I'll leave it on the screen for a second while I prepare the demonstration of the Iowa financial aid application, and I'll put our contact information back up at the end of the presentation too. So if anybody needs to reach the scholarship and grant team, which is myself and my 3 colleagues, you can reach us at that 877 number. Be sure to press option 3, or we have the grants at iowacollegeaid.gov, which is a mailbox that we all monitor and respond to quickly. If there are questions or clarifications, Liz or Jessica, I can address those now. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and transition to the filling out the IFA.
Yes, I think you can go ahead and go forward.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. I'm going to try to make this maybe a little bigger in the hopes that it makes it easier to see on the screen. So there are two ways, well, three ways actually, to find the Iowa financial aid application. At the end of submitting the FAFSA, you will be asked if you want to submit your state's application. So one way would be to look for our link at the end of the FAFSA. A second way would be to, if you remember the full name of this, you can Google Iowa financial aid application. And the first result that pops up is our application, which looks like this. If you don't remember the full name of the application, you can simply Google Iowa Department of Education. And on our homepage, you will see a menu across the top, and we are found under the higher education part of the menu. And in fact, if you hover over that and just come down to financial aid, scroll down to the bottom of this page, you'll see the two applications. So clicking on Iowa financial aid application, and then there'll be one more click. You have to scroll down again, and one more click to actually get to the IFA. And before I start the demo, I'm going to pause and talk about a question that we get a lot, which is, in which order do I need to submit these applications, or does it matter? And the answer is no, we do not care which order you do it. We just care that it's done by the deadline. So it doesn't matter to us if you do the IFA first or the FAFSA first. All right, first question on the application. Which year are we applying for aid? Sorry, I didn't go away. I'm just having a choking fit here. I'm going to mute myself for one more second. Bear with me.
Okay. While Julie is getting a drink of water, I just want to also note that this webinar here will be on the ICANN website, icansucceed.org. And then we're also going to list it on our Facebook page as well after we get the recording. So the two places that people can catch it if they did miss the live version tonight.
Thank you for your patience. Sorry about that. Still trying to recover. So bear with me here. Once we select the academic year, I will point out that we do have some student loan repayment programs that the student can apply for after graduating. But right now, tonight, we want to focus on the scholarship and grant options. So you will click the first radio button. And the first question you're presented with is about the high school credential that you will earn. Whether it's a homeschool diploma, equivalency diploma, or high school diploma, you simply select the option that applies to you and complete your high school graduation date. This is one of the places on the application where I like to pause and give a little life hack, so to speak. We do our best to keep our list of high schools current and updated, but there is always a chance that a new high school exists that we haven't yet input into our application. So my advice on this one is to use the city search box to input the city where your high school is located, and then that will present you with a list of high schools in that city. In the event you do not see your high school listed, here's my advice. Please go ahead and pick a high school that is in your city and submit the application. You can then contact us after the fact, and we can update the application with your actual high school. This enables you to go ahead and get the application submitted and meet the deadline, and we can always correct the high school after the fact. You will notice once you select the high school, it populates at the top of the screen. Once you input your date of birth, you will be asked to select which college might you attend. And I like to pause here too, because we do get a lot of questions about this. Pardon me. The FAFSA allows you to input up to 10 colleges and universities. Our application limits you to 3. There are 2 things that are important to note. Number 1, when we receive your IFA, we will eventually receive your FAFSA information, and we will marry the 2 records together. So ultimately, we will receive all the colleges that you list on your FAFSA, plus the colleges that you list on your IFA. So in that way, we will know all of the possible colleges that you might attend. For purposes of the IFA, what I recommend is if you are a student who is deciding between multiple colleges, my advice is to give us the broadest scope of colleges that you might attend. And here's what I mean by that. If you are considering a community college, or maybe a state university, or maybe multiple state universities, or if you're considering a private college or multiple private colleges, give me a sampling of each that you might attend. And I'll show you why that might be important on the next screen. If you are a student that has already narrowed down exactly where you're going, don't feel like you need to populate all 3 boxes. Populating the first one with your college of choice is perfectly great. Okay, if you are a soldier in the Guard, this is where you'll tell us. If you are involved with Iowa's foster care system, this is where you'll tell us. And if you have not yet graduated from high school and are still enrolled in high school, you can tell us that here. Or if you've graduated and are a current college student, you can tell us that here. If you are not a student, but rather you are full-time in the military and are going back to college, you can tell us that here. And if none of these apply to you, you can select none of the above. Okay. The next screen that you are presented with is this grid where we take your college choices and the answers that you submitted on the IFA, and we try to give you an indication of what you appear to be eligible for. This is not a guarantee of aid. This is what we think you appear to possibly qualify for. The reason why I had asked for the broadest spectrum of colleges is because you can see there are programs that are exclusive to a particular type of college. So in order to know that the workforce grant might be an option for you, we would need to see a state university in the mix. In order to know if the Iowa tuition grant might be an option, we would need to see a private university. And in order to know if the vocational technical tuition grant or the Kibbie grant is a possibility, we would need to see a community college. So that's why I was kind of suggesting that you give us the broadest scope possible. The other thing that's important to note on this screen is each one of our programs has an indicator at the end of it. And for the programs that have the caret, only the FAFSA is required. So again, by submitting the FAFSA, you have automatically applied for the bottom half of this grid. And it is just these programs at the top that would require you to continue on with our application and submit applications for the ETV grant, AIOS, and National Guard. So at this point, if the only programs that appeared were these ones with the caret and you were to hit apply now, you would simply get a screen that tells you to go fill out the FAFSA, because that's how you apply for these programs. Since we have other programs in the mix, I'm going to go ahead and hit apply now. This is a demographics page where you just simply fill in your information. One thing to note on this page is we do sometimes have autofill issues happen where maybe a parent's name and a parent's information gets submitted. So if autofill is active on your computer, please make sure that it's actually student information that's getting input. All right, my demographics are filled in. It is not required that you give us authorization to text you. It's just an option. And how the Scholarship and Grant Department uses this authorization is annually, we would then reach out to you via text message to remind you that the FAFSA is now available for the future school year and it's time to apply. This means usually 3 or 4 texts a year, usually in the January, February timeframe. Or actually, I guess the FAFSA will now open in October, so that would be the October, November timeframe. Again, it's not required that you check this box, totally up to you. Okay, Liz and Jessica, I'm going to pause again for a quick second and see if there are any questions or clarifications I can provide that have come in via chat.
I think it might be helpful to clarify if a student is planning on going to a school out of state, if they should still complete this application.
Thank you for that question. We have very limited scholarships and grants that can go out of state, namely the Education and Training Voucher Grant, which is for the students in foster care. So if you are not a student in foster care and you are planning on going out of state, honestly, this is a 5-minute application. So just, you know, if any other Iowa school is in the mix, then yes, I would encourage you to do this. If you are 100% committed to going out of state, then no, you wouldn't need to do this application unless you are a student in foster care.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the first application I'm presented with is the Education and Training Voucher Grant, again, because I self-identified as a student involved in foster care on those screening questions at the beginning. I can input my caseworker email address if I want. I must agree to the terms and conditions, and then you would submit. I'm actually going to skip because I don't want my dummy application going into the mix. So you be sure to submit, even though I am clicking something else. The next application I'm presented with is All Iowa Opportunity Scholarship. This is where I can indicate if I'm in an alternative high school or not. My graduation date carries forward from the other screen. If I'm in a TRIO program, I will be asked which TRIO program. If I have delayed my college enrollment due to being in the military, so if I graduated high school and maybe 4 or 5 years have passed and now I'm starting college, this would be a place to indicate that, yes, I've delayed my college and give us your date of discharge. Most students will click no on that. Okay, this is another question where students kind of get hung up. So my life hack for this one is, please pay attention to what's in the parentheses. A lot of times students who are taking dual enrolled college credit classes while in high school give us a date in the past. And that's not what I'm looking for here. I'm looking for, when will you first be enrolled and admitted as a college student? And for most students graduating in May, that date is going to be August. Again, I have to click the authorization and release, and then I would submit the application and continue. And the final application I'm presented with, again, because I kind of self-identified as a soldier in the Guard, I'm given the opportunity to apply for the Iowa National Guard Service Scholarship. I'm going to skip this one as well. What you will see when you apply is this tracking code will be populated. You will receive one email per application submitted. So in this case, had I submitted these applications, I would get 3 emails, each of which would have the tracking code and each of which would have the date and time stamp of when I submitted. That kind of concludes my live demo of our application. So Liz and Jessica, are there other things to discuss or clarify, or should I go back to a different step of the application to demonstrate something?
There are no additional questions in the chat currently.
Okay. Jessica, if you're okay with it, what I will do is just pop our contact information slide back up.
Sure. Mhm.
And maybe you can talk about the other ICANN opportunities that are happening.
Of course, Julie. Thank you for that great demo. So you answered a lot of questions for parents and students on how to get through that application. Any essays?
No essays.
No essays. Okay. Thank you very much for that. All right. Yeah. So next week we have FAFSA Awareness Week. So that's coming up, and we have a couple other webinars that parents and students can go ahead and register and view. The first one is the FAFSA step-by-step with ICANN. So next Wednesday night on the 17th at 5:30 p.m. That's our regular Wednesday webinar night. We will be doing, or Eric will be doing, a FAFSA walkthrough. And that's, again, in conjunction with our partners here at the Bureau of Iowa College Aid. And then also we will have the Iowa Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators on the webinar as well. And they will be running the chat and asking any questions about that FAFSA application. So that will be very helpful, that we actually have people that are in the financial aid application or in the financial aid offices talking about the application and answering any questions. So to register for that, parents and students can go back to our website at icansucceed.org and register for that FAFSA step-by-step. So very helpful for first-time parents and students completing that application, or someone who just wants to get a look at that new form, a returning student who will see a completely different application than they have in years past. So that's next Wednesday at 5:30. And then I believe you guys will be doing the Create Your FSA ID and prepare for that FAFSA night. That's going to be on Tuesday, January 16th at 5:30. And where can people register for that webinar?
I can place the link in the chat if that would be helpful.
Yep, that would be great. And then this will just be about creating that FSA ID and who needs to create an FSA ID. So it's a little bit of a change in years past, because the student will need one, and then any contributors, individuals such as an independent student spouse, or parent or parents that will need to also have their FSA ID. So some good information there on not only creating that ID, but also doing the FAFSA application. Okay. So FAFSA Awareness Week next week. All right. So any other comments or thing you want to add to the webinar tonight, Julie or Liz?
I would just invite people to reach out to us via phone or email if there are questions that they come up with after tonight. We're happy to assist in whatever way we can. Please reach out.
Okay. All right. And anything from you, Liz?
I echo what Julie said.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So again, I want to thank ICANN's partners, again, the Bureau of Iowa College Aid. Sorry, I will get used to the new title here soon, the new name. Liz and Julie, thank you so much for sharing this information and on this and also going through the application tonight. I do think we do have an a question here, and it asks, can parents complete this application for students? Is that okay for a parent to do that, Julie?
Yes, that is okay. As long as you, particularly in the case of the National Guard, you would need the Soldiers Department of Defense number. But that's probably the only tricky question on there. Any of our other questions, I'm guessing a parent would be able to answer, and that's fine if they submit.
Okay, wonderful. All right. All right, everybody. Well, we are concluding this webinar right now. Thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you got a few good takeaways from the information. And again, will be posting this not only on our website, but also on our Facebook page. So thank you very much and have a good evening.